MultiGreen, building attainable, sustainable, and tech-enabled multifamily real estate through impact investing.
Welcome to the MultiGreen podcast. I'm your host, Randy Norton, and today we'll be speaking with investor, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, Trevor Neilson. As the co-founder and chairman of IX Investments, his work centers around permanently capitalized, multi-strategy impact investing, focused on addressing areas of human need. Trevor and his team were pioneers in impact investing, way before it was cool. Enjoy our conversation. Trevor, the last time I saw you was March 11th, 2020, I believe, at your annual shareholder meeting for IX at the New York Stock Exchange. And the New York Stock Exchange is a very special place to have an annual shareholder meeting. Is there a backstory there as to why that location was chosen?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, especially for our shareholders from around the world, the New York Stock Exchange, is a powerful symbol of the possibilities that capitalism provides. And, it's a striking place. I think a lot of people don't realize that because computers do the trading, there's not a whole lot to see or to tour. But symbolically, as a place where families who care about creating social impact while pursuing top tier returns, it's a place that symbolizes the opportunity to bring those principles to the broader market. And so we do it there. People really like it. New York also is just a central, location for our families that come from 14 or 15 countries around the world. It happened that we were doing that right before the world changed. And so I don't think any of us realized just what was going to happen. I think that you must have been one of the last people that I saw in person, period.
That's right.
Since that time. But, luckily now it looks like we may have vaccines in our future and maybe a return to normal sometime relatively soon.
That's great. Also at that New York Stock Exchange experience, it was a first for me. You and Prince Charles announced the Sustainable Future Initiative. Right. As IX shareholders, what is our involvement there? And can you explain that maybe to the listeners?
Yeah, well, Sustainable Future came out of a interview, actually, that His Royal Highness gave to the Evening Standard, where back in, this would be November of 2019, where he called on the world of finance to help address the climate emergency. Basically saying that people that invest capital have the ability to support projects that allow us to begin this transition from a dirty fossil fuel-based economy to a clean energy economy. And that private capital is really critical in that. You have the chance to achieve top-tier returns while helping the world decarbonize. And so basically, Sustainable Future is a collection of families from around the world that have agreed to work together with His Royal Highness collectively on climate solutions. MultiGreen would be a great example of that. And so far, because of COVID, it's had to be virtual for the most part. We were able to gather people together once for an in-person, event. But moving forward, there will be more opportunities to convene. And I think that London will be an important center for that. He likes to convene people at Dumfries House, which is a sustainable estate that he has in Scotland. But also we'll probably be doing events at Buckingham Palace and elsewhere with him, all around the theory that if you educate the wealthiest families in the world about the fact that great investment opportunities exist, which will help us address the climate emergency, then they're going to want to be a part of it, and so far it seems to really be working.
That's tremendous. What a background you have in connecting with all of these leading families of the world. I want to dive into the genesis of IX and you. What was the genesis of IX Investments and its creation?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur, and I have built and sold a couple of companies, but was investing in New York as the president of a company called G2 Investment Group. And G2 was basically a merchant bank, no specific focus on sustainability, no specific focus on, on impact, not doing anything bad in the world, but, not seeking to achieve social returns or impact returns in its investment thesis. And I've always been philanthropic. My parents have a foundation. My wife and I have a foundation, and had kind of wondered, why is my life in philanthropy separate from my life as an investor? Why do I perceive capital and the deployment of capital in this kind of bifurcated way, right? That, that on one side of your brain, you're thinking about how to make money. And then the other side of your brain, you're thinking about how to make the world better. So I started studying the world of impact investing, and I went to all the conferences. I talked to all the big banks and private equity and such, read a bunch of books, and met some of the real founding fathers and mothers of sustainable investing, and came to three big conclusions about it, all of which were negative, basically. The three big conclusions were there was a lack of talent in the world of investing for impact. There was a lack of product, just not a lot that really got to the scale that big families need or institutional investors need. And then the third was that there's a brand problem. There was just this perception that if you were investing in a way that sought to make the world a better place, you just must not be making money. That's kind of for wimps and do-gooders, this view that the role of capital and capitalism is profit at any cost without any regard for externalities of any sort, no form of consciousness whatsoever. That point of view, this is now 6 years ago, was really pervasive, especially on Wall Street. And so seeing those three big problems, I spotted an opportunity, which was to try to create a structure that would allow the leading families of the world first, and then later institutional investors, to begin investing in this new way, with the belief that the world was headed in this direction. And so I got together with Per Lindstrom, who's now our CIO. I got together with my co-founder, Howard W. Buffett, and said, hey, what would the Berkshire, model look like if it were applied to those three problems? Is the permanent capital model one that, would be conducive to this? Everybody seemed to think the answer was yes. And so fast forward now, 60 families from all over the world that is investing together to create impact. And it's a really, really wonderful thing.
It's tremendous. Didn't you also have some experience, or I guess you're from the Seattle area, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation?
Yeah, so I was one of the early employees there. I served as Bill's spokesperson, ran public affairs and government relations and communications.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I think I was the fourth employee. It was before it was even called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I was just working for their family office, trying to help them figure it out. That was a really formative experience for me, because working directly for Bill and Melinda Gates gave me a pretty unique view on the way that people who are very serious about philanthropy, I think it's hard to argue that there's anyone more serious than Bill and Melinda, view their the use of their capital and view their role in the world. And so I'll tell you a good story about that, which is that while I was there, I was I think I was the third or the fourth employee, and we were above this pizza restaurant in Redmond, Washington, called Big Time Pizza. That was our office, this small open office. I could smell the pizza all day long, and I must have gained 30 pounds because I just had the buffet every day, the all-you-can-eat buffet. And we were sitting there one day, and I heard the president of the group, a woman named Patty Stonecipher, start almost, yelling kind of with excitement. And everybody came over and she was responding to the fact that Bill had just told her he had transferred some money to the foundation, and it was $5 billion of Microsoft stock.
Wow.
He then did that 4 more times. So we went from, I think we had a staff of 12 or 13, and we had $25 billion in assets, and the need, under the IRS requirement to disperse 5% of that a year.
Incredible.
And so it was a really wild ride. I could not have asked for a better place to learn. Tremendous admiration for people like Bill and Melinda, but also Patty Stonecipher, who was the president at the time. She'd come over from Microsoft, one of the early Microsoft employees, herself a big philanthropist.
I guess that's where you met Howard.
Yeah, so I did. I met Howard's father, met Howard when he was still in college. Yeah, began that friendship and just have tremendous respect for the values of that family and their commitment to philanthropy and to all of their intellect and just passion around trying to make the world a better place.
It's tremendous. Well, as you know, with MultiGreen, we are trying to make the world a better place. We are focusing on attainable, sustainable, tech-enabled housing, and we have committed to improving the state of the world by constructing 40,000 new sustainable multifamily units in the United States. To my knowledge, that's never been done before. I know you have a personal commitment to sustainability. Why does this sustainability stuff matter to you? And why does that matter to investors?
Well, I think that MultiGreen is a very powerful argument that we have the ability to address the climate emergency, but also do it in a way that supports more equitable communities that provide dignified, attainable housing for the people that need to live there. And in doing so, adopt, a more responsible ethic as it comes to construction, how these buildings are run, how these buildings are maintained. We are in a global climate emergency. There is a historic level of carbon in our atmosphere. It has led to a terrifying increase in global temperatures. Those temperatures are driving extreme weather events all around the world. I'll give you an example. My wife is half Filipino and half German. The Philippines has been hit by 20 typhoons so far this year. 20.
Devastating.
Where I live in Malibu, we endured a really terrifying set of wildfires 2 years ago called the Woolsey Fire, which was the largest fire in Southern California history. Me and my family had to flee from our home. Many of our friends lost everything in that fire. We were lucky because the fire, turned in a certain direction and it wasn't in the direction of our house. And society has been very slow to wake up and acknowledge the climate emergency. And only as of late have young people really demanded that we confront it. Greta Thunberg, but also activists all over the world, mostly young, some older, who have said, if we do not take disruptive, dramatic action, we are facing ecological collapse, species extinction, and a really terrifying future. And so what has begun as the work of activists is very quickly moving into the world of business. And so as an example, I think it's now 30-something% of Fortune 500 companies have committed to being carbon neutral by 2030. Some of them have a slower time frame. You're seeing people begin to realize that we have to address this, and there's a role for business. I think that the unfortunate 4 years of the Trump presidency has been devastating to climate in that we had a climate denier, as the president of the United States, also a man who did his best to absolutely gut environmental regulations, clean water protections, you name it. He tried to remove it. But that era is thankfully over. And I think that you'll see that President Biden will be very serious about these issues. And the business community can now really rise up in partnership with the activist community, with government, with NGOs, to address what is probably the biggest single threat we have ever faced, a threat that none of us want to face. I'm really proud of MultiGreen because it is addressing climate by building in an environmentally responsible manner, but it's also addressing justice and equity and the need to, provide a dignified life for people in our communities that are not at the high end of the income spectrum. So in my view, MultiGreen is an incredible investment opportunity, but also B, a very powerful impact strategy. And it's just a fantastic part of what we're doing at IX.
Well, thanks for that summary. I want to dive down a little bit further with MultiGreen. And I've never asked anybody at IX this, but last May, when we were coming together and strategizing on how to best do this, I'm sure there was, back conversations happening inside of IX. At the end of the day, why did IX Investments make an investment in MultiGreen?
The team, really number one, but then also the demographic analysis of the geographies that MultiGreen, plan to target, and a macro analysis around housing overall and the need. But at the end of the day, it's about the team. We are big believers in people, and you can have the best PowerPoint presentation known to mankind. If you don't have the right team, you can forget about it being, an effective approach. And so it really came down to you and the others involved, and the fact that the analysis plus the team could lead to success. And I think that it is shown to be true. I think we are very confident that that was the right decision. And I actually think that MultiGreen is going to end up building more housing than you described. I'm willing to bet on it, in fact, because while that's a big target, the momentum that we've seen so far suggests that we could beat that.
It's unbelievable to see the success that we've seen in our first year of business. We anticipated doing one transaction, and we're on path to do 4 by the end of December 31st. And frankly, we could have done more, but we put the brakes on to make sure we have all of our systems and infrastructure in place internally. And that's just a testament to you and your team at IX. You guys overperformed. And that's been really exciting.
I don't think it's just our team, but I think that, it's interesting, Randy, when you manage people and see what works and what doesn't, when something is in sync, when it's firing on all cylinders, people outperform, and when it's not, it's just harder. It's harder to keep people focused, keep people engaged. And in the case of MultiGreen, it's just working.
It's a lot of fun. Well, I want to ask you 2 last questions. In the spirit of MultiGreen, can you share with me a few of your favorite green things in life?
So I'm from the Pacific Northwest and grew up, in the mountains there and fishing and hiking and such. And there is a place called the Hoh Rainforest. Hoh, I think, is a Native American name. And this is out on the Olympic Peninsula. So picture the farthest northwest point of the United States, basically, right up there in the corner. If you swam out in the water, you'd hit Canada. And the Hoh River Trail is the greenest place I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
Everything is green. It's a jungle, basically, right? They call it a rainforest, but it basically is a jungle, though it gets cold too, right? And there is not a thing in that rainforest that is not covered in every color of green, moss, lichen, leaf, needle you can imagine. It is the greenest place I have ever been. And I think for that reason, that would be my answer.
That is so cool. I can't wait to go see that.
It is spectacular. The reason it exists is because you're wedged between a mountain range, the Olympic Mountains, and the ocean, right? So the clouds come in off the ocean and they hit this mountain range and they dump rain, 358 days a year.
It's always raining up there.
It is spectacular, though. The Hoh River Trail.
Hoh River Trail. Okay, I'm going to have to go check that out. I'm up in Vancouver every now and then. My wife is Canadian, and that's one of our favorite areas on Earth.
Oh, it is incredible. It's right across from, Victoria, basically.
Yes. Well, thank you, Trevor. I want to ask you one last question, and that is this. It is the end of 2020. Oh, my goodness. It was quite the year with COVID and everything else. And we have launched MultiGreen with the world on the global stage at the World Economic Forum of building 40,000 homes for 40,000 families by 2030. If you had just one wish for MultiGreen, what would it be?
I think it would be to accomplish that, but go even farther. There's no reason that this model can't scale exponentially. And, we need to do one in a row, and when we are. But once 3, 4, 5 of those are up and running, there's no reason that this solution can't be brought to other places and to do that quickly. And I think as institutional capital starts seeing the track record, the scale of this can become enormous, and at the end of the day, if you have shareholders that are happy with the returns they've achieved, and you also have families, that maybe didn't have a housing solution before, and now they do, thousands and thousands of people, those are a pretty powerful affirmation of the strategy. So I guess I can imagine the day when, we're seeing photos of those people and simultaneously going out to the shareholders and saying, here's your returns. Well, that's a pretty amazing moment.
Thanks for sharing that, Trevor. I am so excited about MultiGreen, and I'm just so grateful to be working with you and your entire team at IX. It's been a tremendous effort this year, and 9 more years to go.
Yeah, well, the feeling is mutual. Thanks for having me on, and I hope I can come back sometime.
We will do this. We're going to check in on our goals.
All right, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trevor.
Talk to you soon. Have a nice afternoon.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Join us as we build 40,000 attainable, sustainable, and tech-enabled multifamily homes by 2030. And if you like the content you're hearing, hit the subscribe button. Follow us at Think MultiGreen and sign up to learn more at www.multi.green.